no one's believing me, and you know, there's something wrong, I don't know what's wrong, but something is wrong, no one's taking me seriously.
Imagine you had cancer, again and again and again. That's what it's like to have VHL.
I'm not a great believer in dashing to the internet to look up and Google everything and scare yourself witless. So I really didn't bother. But when I got to the hospital and it was explained by the consultant exactly what it was and how many different types of cancer could be involved in it, then I did start to worry, but not for myself, for my children. Sorry, I just felt so guilty. And their children as well.
VHL, or von Hippel-Lindau, is a terrible disease that affects 1 in 36,000 people, men, women, and children all over the world. Throughout their lives, these people will develop tumors in their eyes, their brain, spine, kidney, pancreas. They will undergo surgery to remove these tumors, and the tumors will come back.
I felt so guilty for them. I think your first thought of as a mother is always your children. I am carrying the gene, and so I have to be tested every year. So I have to go to 9 wells every year to be tested, and it's my kidney. They're scanning my kidneys because of my niece's tumour was on an adrenal gland.
I climbed up, I think it was about 100 steps to get to our apartment, and felt really sick when I got to the top of the stairs, and very bad headaches and pains down my arms, and felt like I was about to have a heart attack, and it kept continuing. The feeling of someone sitting on your chest, pains down your arms, feeling faint, being sick quite a lot. So I went down to the doctors after a few months. The first doctor I got was really good. She set me up to 9 wells and said that she wanted me to get checked out. She wanted my heart to get x-rayed and my blood pressure taken. So I went up to the heart clinic and everything was perfect. Just, you're healthy, everything's fine, there's nothing wrong with you. And I started losing weight, drastically losing weight, which is not like me because I love my food and I love my wine. So I started thinking, no, something's not right. I know something's not right. So I went down to the doctors again, and they said that they thought I had anxiety. One day I had in my head, oh, I'm going to start getting fit again, and get the Insanity DVD in the DVD player and start exercising, and I just collapsed on the floor and was being violently sick and was shouting on Jay, who's my partner, to get me to phone an ambulance. I said, please phone an ambulance, I feel like I'm having a heart attack. So it took maybe about 45 minutes for the ambulance to come, and by the time they came, they did my blood pressure, they did an ECG, and everything was fine. They were like, no, you're completely fine, there's nothing wrong with you. And the lady, the ambulance driver, the lady actually took Jay into the hall and said, what's really going on here? What's wrong with her? Has she got depression, or is she stressed? Has she recently had a baby? Or asking loads of questions, and Jay says, no, she's been like this for months now. She just gets really ill when she does any sort of physical activity. It went on for maybe about 1.5 to 2 years, just constantly going down to doctors. And I think on record I'd been down 23 times. The last time I went, I'd got this doctor, and I had my youngest son with me, who is wild. And when she was asking me what was wrong with me, I told her all my symptoms and how I felt. I'd lost, I think by this time I'd lost about 1.5 stone in weight. I told her that I'd been losing weight, and I wasn't trying to lose weight, it was just falling off me. And all this time I was speaking to her, she seemed more concentrated on what my son was doing, and I just didn't feel like she was listening to me. So she sat there and she said, you have 2 sons, don't you? I says, oh yeah. I says, but the first one, I says, he's laid back. I says, he's nothing like that. And then she just said to me, oh, what's really going on here? I says, I don't know what you mean. She says, what's really going on here? Are you not coping at home? And then after that, I just lost it and basically stormed out her room because she was wanting me to admit to something that I didn't think that I had, because of the usual, you're anxiety, you're stressed, blah, blah, blah. So I went home and Jay had phoned me that night and I just burst into tears on the phone and was like, no one's believing me, and you know, there's something wrong, I don't know what's wrong, but something is wrong, no one's taking me seriously. And he says, go private, I've had enough now, just phone the private hospital tomorrow morning and we'll go private. And that's what I did. Well, I've seen this male doctor, and he asked me my symptoms. I explained the symptoms and he says, right, the first thing we'll do is we'll put you on the treadmill. So he put me on the treadmill, and after 2.5 minutes of being on the treadmill, he ushered me to get off. He was like, get off that treadmill right now, get off. And the usual thing happened. I came off, I collapsed, I started being sick. And then from then on, I started getting tests done because he knew that there was something affecting my heart, but he didn't know what was affecting my heart at this point. I was in the middle of getting tests done when one night I'd walked 200 yards maybe, and I collapsed when I was walking, and I got rushed up to 9 Wells, the hospital, and then they could see that there was something causing my heart was not getting oxygen, so I was going into what they were calling like a state of cardiac arrest. But they didn't know, they weren't too sure why, but they just knew that there was something that was causing my heart to stop getting oxygen. And I was in hospital, I think, for 4 weeks, and through various heart scans, because they thought it was always the heart, I eventually got a kidney scan and got told that I had a tumour on top, around my adrenal gland, which sits on top of your kidney. So I found that out, but when people get tumours on their adrenal glands, it's very, very rare, and it's linked to a disease called von Hippel-Lindau disease. So I also got tested for that, and then uncovered that I had the gene of the VHL disease. When they told me what was wrong, I was actually happy, because I was like, I am not going mad. I'm actually not going mad, because it had been drummed into me by so many doctors that this is what's wrong with you. So you've got your stress, you've got anxiety, you're having panic attacks, and it's like, no, I'm not, because I've got nothing to be stressed about. It's having a huge effect on me and Jay's relationship, and I know that sounds stupid, but he thought, got to the point, because I wasn't getting any answers from the doctors, he thought it was in my head. But then I started thinking it was in my head as well, because, you know, I wasn't getting any answers. Wasn't too sure where the VHL gene came from. So the first thing we do is to test your parents to rule out, that's the first thing we do, and it turned out that my mother had the gene. So there's 5 children, and 2 of my brothers and myself have it, and the other 2, my other brother and other sister, they don't have it. And then obviously all our children of the ones who had it had to get tested. I have 2 boys, and they have been tested with through saliva tests. The saliva showed that they didn't have the gene, but I would like that reassurance of getting their blood taken to know that they've definitely not got it.
Unfortunately, we can't go any further back in the family history to trace the VHL gene, because both my parents died when they were quite young, and my brother unfortunately was killed quite a number of years ago. So we don't know whether he was carrying the gene. He did have family, he had 3 children, but we've lost touch with them, so we don't know whether they could be carrying the gene.
I'd always said that I would have no more kids before I found this out, to be honest with you, but that has definitely sealed the deal now, because obviously I'm fortunate enough, from what I know just now, that with their saliva tests that they don't have it. So I'm fortunate enough to know that. So yeah, to have another child, I just just in case there was, if there was ever that doubt that another child could get that. No, I wouldn't have it. Because obviously I've had the tumour on my adrenal glands. I get my adrenal glands and the kidneys. I get them scanned every year. And then your eyes, you get your eyes done every year. That's a yearly thing. And the brain and your spinal cord, which shows up in your brain scan anyway, and your bladder, they get tested every 5 years. When I did have the phemochromocytoma, the tumour on my adrenal gland, what it does is that it was compressing, because it was compressing on my adrenal gland, the tumour, because it basically wrapped itself round the adrenal gland and it was compressing, it was constantly releasing adrenaline, and that's how my heart wasn't able to keep up with it, and that's how it started getting starved of oxygen. I was like at the high, one of the highest ends I've ever seen of like the amount of adrenaline that was running through my body. Now they're like really low, they're like too low now. But he did say that. Basically he said I was about to be a fat bastard. So I have 4 tiny little scars, they're like 2 to 3 centimetres long, 4 of them, 2 at the top of my abdomen and 2 at the bottom. And yeah, they were able to take it out by keyhole, and I had to spend one day in HDU, the high dependency unit, just purely because of the blood pressure, because my blood pressure was so high because of what happened. They had to keep an eye on all the levels to make sure that everything was going to go back to normal. And I was in there one night, and the next day they said I was the first person I'd ever seen walk out of a high dependency unit into a ward. And then I was in a ward for another 6 days and got to go home and just had a recovery at home. It was fine. I wasn't being sick anymore or feel like I was about to die, so it was great.
To be with you, yes, I